Ladies and gentlemen, you might be a fan of a show called Cordkillers, where we tell you how to watch things. We talk about streaming services. We talk about boxes that you can use. But the whole point of doing all that is so you can enjoy watching stuff. And that's what this show is about. It's Spoilerin time. And on today's show, we're going to spoil episode 7 of season 4 of Justified and episode 9 of season 1 of Westworld. I'm Tom Merritt. As always, Brian Brushwood is joining me. How are you, sir?
Hey, man, I'm the best ever. And you know why? Is because we have Scott Johnson, who I'm finally going to get to talk. I've decided that when it comes to Westworld, my ranting is, I'm out of energy. So it's like now I'm just befuddled by it. But we'll talk about that in a bit. But first, Scott Johnson, have you been keeping up with the movie draft?
Well, Scott, have you?
Yeah,
No.
yeah. No, that's fine.
Haven't been.
No, that's fine. That's why we had this
He wasn't
segment.
in the movie draft this year.
I know.
Because I'm so bummed about not being in it. It was my fault. I had a conflict and couldn't be in it, and so now I'm just sad every time it gets mentioned. But I'm really pushing for whoever's ahead.
Well, right now you're pushing for Justin Robert Young, who's Doctor Strange. Oh, recently Doctor Strange passed $600 million worldwide, making it I believe the largest single character release in the Marvel Cinematic Universe's history.
Is that right?
Yeah.
No kidding.
That's
amazing.
I believe so. Somebody can
Is
fact
that
check
worldwide? Because we have 205
worldwide.
domestic.
Yeah,
Okay.
worldwide.
Got it.
Worldwide.
Now it's 205 million domestic, and I believe it's starting to slow down a bit. So do we think it'll hit 300?
No. I mean, it's going to top out at 250. Justin's totally screwed. He's in first place right now. But after this, his only movies are Allied, La La Land, and The Great Wall. So in other words, he'll get $20 and a taco to take home.
Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them got up to 156 million in its second weekend out. So that boosted Christie up. She's now in second place. And I think that one will probably hit 200 million.
Sure.
Or at least get really close.
It could hit 500 million, and it won't help her because her only other movie is The Comedian.
Moana got 82 million in its opening weekend, long weekend with Thanksgiving here in the U.S. So Milango is in pretty good shape there, because that's definitely going to keep making money throughout the holiday season.
Yeah, you know what? That's actually not bad. I'm going to place Milango like maybe number 3 in the overall. He's got a chance at number 3, but really, I mean, again, he's out of movies too. Office, Christmas Party, Passengers. This was a weird draft. I kind of wish you were there to experience it, Scott. It was just a weird one.
Bad Santa 2
seems
came
like
out.
You guys have a lot of weird leftovers at the end of this one that you don't usually have.
Bad Santa 2 was one of Mikey's movies, and he had a strategy where he would probably need all his movies to do well, and that didn't happen. Bad Santa 2 opened at $9 million.
$9 million. Tom, it's a two-person race. It's me versus the universe.
Hold on, Brian. I mean, some bad news. Kidnap, starring Halle Berry, is my movie. It was supposed to come out this week. It's been delayed till January.
Oh, no.
Which means it's not going to get the holiday boost that I was counting on.
Okay, yes. You still have Rogue One, A Star Wars Story, Resident Evil, The Final Chapter, and you're sitting on $135 million. Forgive me if I forget to shed a tear. We were just talking about how the virtual line to buy tickets to Rogue One was 6,400 people long just here in Austin at the Alamo Drafthouse.
Yeah. Did you guys all buy tickets for Rogue One?
No, I'm not. I'm boycotting it. I think it's a garbage movie. I think it's a garbage franchise. I don't support it. I think it's racist and sexist and transphobic. I'll have nothing to do with it.
All press is good press, Brian.
Yeah, you're just making those ticket sales go up. So I made the attempt on the times I wanted. Everything that I wanted was sold out immediately. But there's still some slots like early Friday, and there's some stuff going Saturday that we may end up doing. So I'll end up seeing it that weekend, but I'm not all that worked up about making sure.
They added showings later so that you could actually get tickets on opening day that you couldn't have the day the tickets went on sale.
Yeah, I'll do that. Like, I'll take an unpleasant time of the evening to watch the movie in order to be able to see it, pretty much opening night. That'd be fun.
Yeah. I'm actually not seeing it at 7 p.m. is the earliest that you could buy it here in LA. I'm seeing it at 8. But unlike Force Awakens, I don't feel like I have to see it the minute it opens.
It's not that big of a cultural touchstone the way The Force Awakens was. Although, and we've talked about this before, I was explaining to Bryce that in some ways this is the most approachable Star Wars movie since the very first one, in that you don't have to know a single thing about the Star Wars universe. You can just walk right in, and it has nothing to do with anything else.
I'll tell you what, though, I'm reading the book Catalyst, which is the prequel, and it's making me much more excited for the movie. I was already excited for the movie, but it's going into the backstory of the Ursos and director Krennic in a way.
I didn't even think about doing that. That's got to be on audiobook too, right?
Yeah, it is. And it's those characters which are like, oh, I'll meet them in the movie, are now these like rich, full characters with backstory. And it hit me when I was watching the most recent trailer. They show Jyn Erso's mom when she's young saying, Jyn, take this, and giving her a necklace. And I'm like, oh, I know who that is now. Like, I know that woman.
Man, I have a moral dilemma, because I know once you've read a book that leads up to the culmination of this brand new story, you're cheating. You get the backstory on all the characters. Do I want to gin everything up so that I'm teed up to love it?
Jyn Erso everything up. I got what you did there.
I don't know. That's a good question.
Yeah. I mean, it's not all the characters. I don't know if that makes any difference. Like, there's a ton of characters that aren't in this that are definitely, the main part of her entourage. And you don't get much of Jyn. She's a baby in this.
Hey, real quick, one more thing on the draft. If I'm going to win, it will be because Logan is a surprise massive hit. I think it could be. It's so far down the schedule that it could get delayed and I could get totally screwed. But it's almost a summer feater because it's near the end.
What if it's a flip-flop of the summer because it's the last movie in our draft?
Yeah. But
what if it doesn't make enough in its 4 weeks?
That might be, because it practically is the first summer movie and might be. So we'll see. That'll be really interesting.
Yeah.
The last Wolverine movie. It's a big deal, man.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah. Yep.
And I'm getting more excited the more I find out about it.
Me too.
All right. Let's talk about Westworld episode 9, season 1. The big reveal. If you aren't watching Westworld and you don't want to be spoiled, shut off this podcast, because this was the major theory confirmed that people had been batting about, that in fact, Bernard, have you shut it off yet? Bernard is based on Arnold. Ford built Bernard to look, act, and think like Arnold, who was Ford's co-creator of the park.
Yeah, I have a thing to say about that. I have been almost nothing but praise about the show, even when it gets sort of all up its own butt and being sort of lost season 3 and everything. I think it doesn't matter to me. I'm kind of in for the ride. I'm excited to see the puzzle unfold before me. I'm not really that frustrated with what's going on. But I felt like the minute we knew he was a host was the minute we knew it was Arnold, and he didn't have to be some Reddit genius to figure this out. His name is a virtual anagram.
It is an actual anagram.
It's an actual anagram.
Yeah.
Everything about the reveal felt a little bit like, yeah, no, we know. I mean, other than the impeccable acting and the incredibly well shot exchange between Ford and Bernard, and that entire scene, I love it. I love anything that happens in that basement. I'm all in on that, by the way. I love it down there. Except for all that, there's a lot of naked dudes. I'm not into that, but I'm really into that basement. I think it's cool and gnarly down there. So I loved all of that, but I just felt like they really had to do this long, drawn out reveal as if it was something I didn't know. And I just knew, Reddit or not, I knew that he was Arnold. Of course he was freaking Arnold, and it just took him long enough to get there, I guess.
How come nobody in Westworld looks at the picture on Ford's desk and says, hey, that looks a lot like you, Bernard?
Well, remember when they showed it before, it was to Bernard, and he saw a blank space there because he is programmed not to see himself.
It doesn't look like anything to me.
Yeah, it looks like nothing to me. I kind of like that touch. Like that is a nice throwback to go.
Yeah, but you got to figure Elsie went into Ford's office at some point, or Teresa Cullen. It was like, oh, is that Bernard and your father? Oh, that's Arnold, or something. Yeah. I don't know.
It's a good point. Unless she was a host the whole time.
The other reveal was that the man in black knows the corporate representative, and she went and bugged him during playtime, and he got really annoyed.
And he's a board member.
Yeah. And did they confirm that the two timeline thing yet? Like that's
No.
We haven't got confirmation on that yet.
I mean, this is it weird? Is it weird to anyone else that the two pieces of biggest dramatic tension, and it is true dramatic tension, are conflicts that occur outside of the show? On Reddit threads and speculation, because like it was a cool moment to be like, oh, the theory is true. He is a replacement for, but Bernard is whatever his name is, Arnold. But shouldn't that tension have been like built into the show and not on Reddit threads? And this other thing
felt
about
like
the
the
timelines?
tension was in the show because I don't read any of the Reddit threads, so I don't know. Maybe that's just a result of talking about it so much and feeling like it was obvious, but. I did feel like it was a possibility. I wasn't 100% sure.
Brian, maybe they're geniuses because look what they've done. They've harnessed the water cooler element, which is now Reddit. It's where we all gather around to talk about this stuff every week. And that's important for a show like this with the kind of arc they're painting. They need that, just like all the other shows that do this sort of thing. They need that element. So they've got that, even if some of them are a little restless and frustrated. And then on the other hand, you got Tom, who doesn't go to those threads, who doesn't read those things, and is just sort of eating it as it comes, and he's totally satisfied with the way it's presented dramatically. Like, I think that's a really decent straddle to achieve. I'm almost sad that I knew about these theories beforehand, even though they're not really spoilers. Theories are just theories.
Yeah, I knew about the theories. I just didn't spend a lot of time on them.
Yeah, it does paint, or I think it does have the potential to paint your impression of what's happening before it happens or as it happens. But the idea that I can't be entertained, even though a lot of this stuff was either writing on the wall or people have already figured it out or whatever, I don't think is entirely fair. I know, like, for example, Brian, I know you have an issue with, like, everybody in the park is supposed to be like an NPC and there should be no dramatic tension in killing them or shooting them or pushing them off things or whatever, because they're just NPCs like if they were in a video game, any more than we have any real remorse for hurting somebody in Grand Theft Auto or something.
Correct.
I totally get where you're coming from, but I think we're missing the key point there. Well, there's two things there. One, I feel bad when I hurt people in Grand Theft Auto, so I'm a bad example to talk to, because I'll do something like that and just go, ugh, that didn't feel right, and I'll avoid trying to run over ladies in the street anymore or whatever, because it just didn't feel good to me. So there's that one thing. It kind of sparks this thing.
Right.
The other thing is, this is a world where they're trying to play with the idea that there is an emerging intelligence, an emerging AI, or more importantly, an emerging self-consciousness among these quote-unquote hosts. And once that happens, if Star Trek taught us anything, you got to be careful, because if they're sentient, they're alive. No matter who built them, no matter how they got here, they're alive. And so that alone is tension for me in that situation. And I never watch that as, oh, well, he's just offing a bunch of NPCs, because the emergence is happening. So he is potentially committing, real murder, real loss of life.
Sure.
That's how I justify that in my head.
Sure. Well, and that's one of the weird parts about the show, because there's so much that the show does exquisitely, possibly the best ever. The acting is incredible. The set design is incredible. The set pieces are gorgeous, and the world building is amazing. But I realized somebody on something online was suggesting that really this whole first season is just setting the table for the real story that's going to be coming up in season 2. And it occurred to me that, and this is probably going to be a terrible metaphor because I haven't actually read the books that I'm comparing it to, but it's as though we're experiencing J.R.R. Tolkien's Middle Earth by first reading the Silmarillion, the world building stuff, this bunch of not grand epic adventures, but that fill out the backstory. And as a result, that seems weird. I would start with The Hobbit, a very self-contained, interesting, really good story, and then make me want more of the world, and then we could go into all that. Or it's like we're starting the Harry Potter franchise. Never mind.
I've always felt, just to your point, I've always felt like they've been telling this story backwards. The first few episodes, I felt lost and unmoored. Like, okay, I get it. This is an amazing world, but I don't see what the story is. And what has been fun for me is, as they've filled in those pieces, I felt like, oh, okay, this is what I was waiting for. I'm not sure that that's better. I don't like necessarily being spoon-fed a story and having exposition through dialogue and all of that sort of thing. But I feel like it was almost a little too avant-garde in the first couple episodes, but I'm forgiving it now as the pieces are falling into a place. And I feel like by the next week's season finale, we will have a complete story. And it makes perfect sense, if you're right, that it's a setup story, that it's a prequel. Like, here's us introducing you to all these characters and what happened, so that in the next season we can start telling a story in forward gear, based on everything you've learned about them.
Yeah. We got an email that we forgot to read. TCZ writes us saying, Brian and Tom, I'd like to ask Brian a couple of questions for the listeners he represents. Boomer of Galactica, a robot that didn't know what was that a character? Follow up, Athena. I guess spoilers if you haven't watched Battlestar Galactica. But yeah, that's a very interesting story with a motivation, an existential crisis that you have about what it means to be human, and they did a really good job of making me care about it. But also, that's not what they've done on Westworld. They went out of their way to remind me that these are automatons and I should not care about them. And then suddenly, Tom and Scott have it easier than I do because, anyway. Data, Star Trek The Next Generation, couldn't feel emotion. Yeah, knew it was a robot. Yeah, very interesting because it's Pinocchio. It's the story of Pinocchio is a very interesting story. But we aren't seeing the story of Pinocchio. Pinocchio is great because you know the motivation. It's a puppet who wants to be a boy. I don't know what any of these robots want. I know that Maeve wants out, whatever that means, but she didn't even know what's out there. She's just like, well, I just want out and I want more power.
The more I listen to this, the more I feel like the problem is the way the story is told in reverse. They didn't give any of us up front. Here's Maeve. Here's her story. Now here's what she does. What they've done is they've said, here's what Maeve does. Now here's a little bit of motivation. Now here's her story. Like they're literally telling it. They're giving us everything in reverse. And I feel like we're getting to the point where I can tell you all about Maeve and her frustrations and what happened with her daughter, and how she was one of the first to actually act outside of her programming. But we're getting it in reverse order, and it's almost like it's a little too late for you to care about Maeve.
Well, and it's never too late because I'll keep watching it. I just like those characters that do whatever Maeve says, and for the life of me, I can't understand why they do that. They obey Maeve because blank, and I have no idea what goes in there. I keep tuning into Westworld. I don't know what I'm excited about. Like I don't even know what I'm hoping for when I tune in, and that can be fixed. They could very easily just hit the ground running with a kick-ass narrative, and it's like I get the world now, and I'm roped in. But I guess I'm gonna have to wait till season 2 to get that.
You might. I mean, we may have to wait till the finale to truly get at least an idea of what 2 will bring. But I'm going to admit to a weakness here for me, which is I think part of what drives me to want to keep going and why I really like what I'm seeing. You mentioned acting and the way it's shot, and all this other stuff is amazing and impeccable, and they're killing it. There are some problems with the way they do the story structure. I totally agree with that. But here's what drives me. When I see Dolores, seeing what's happened in the past, experiencing memories in their pure state. She's a robot. Her memory, in theory, her memory banks retain the data exactly as it either was or was written to be seen. So you're seeing this stuff in a different timeline. She's wearing a dress when she's seeing some of it. Suddenly she's in her pants again, and now she's walking towards something, and there's ruin to a lot of what she's walking through. So when she walks through the old offices, right, goes down the church confessional, down to the old offices, and lights are blinking, stuff's hanging everywhere, wires are zapping all over the place. There are dead people everywhere in various states of decay. I am dying to know when this is and what the hell happened. Like, I cannot wait for that. I want to know, are all the people dead? Is this 500 years in the future? And she's alone in this world. Like, I have got to know that stuff. So they've hooked me with that alone. And I don't know what that is, but that particular little story hook has always been a thing for me in movies, television, whatever.
Sure, but I mean, you realize that what you're saying is it's attractive to you because on episode 9 out of 10, maybe the big question will be answered. And your literal big question, the thing that's getting you excited is, what is happening? that is the big conflict that you're excited to see resolved. Is you're on 9 out of 10 episodes, you're like, oh, I just can't wait. They're gonna tell us what's happening because I sure as shit don't know.
You know how some people, they might be into whatever torture they're getting. Maybe I'm just into it. Maybe I just like.
So you've got Stockholm syndrome with J.J. Abrams' Westworld.
I don't know, and I kind of like getting dragged around some. I don't know.
And I don't fault you. I mean, I'm with you, man. It's like I'm gonna keep coming back as well. But it's just it's I can't think of another show that has been like this. You know.
Well, and the question is it brilliance that we are too slow or not paying close enough attention to understand, or is it sloppy? And sometimes it's hard to tell. I can look at that Dolores story and think, aha, what we're getting is so confusing because it's representing how Dolores accesses her own memories. Remember, her memories have been overwritten many times. They're supposed to be gone, but there's a residual there that can be uncovered. And there's a basis for this. In fact, the reason that you use Derek's Bootennoot that overwrites your hard drive 7 times with crap data is that every time you overwrite it, there's still a chance of reconstructing it. The reason that you can go get PhotoRec and find things on your hard drive that you thought you deleted is because deletion doesn't really get rid of all the data. And so if you were experiencing this from the internal side, you would see 3 different versions of the church, one of them buried. You would see yourself in 3 different versions of clothes because you're getting fragments of these memories coming back. And we as viewers don't know what's actually happening in what order. So either that will all make sense in retrospect, or they're using that to shield that they don't know either. And I think that's kind of the central discussion we've been having here.
You know, that's actually a really good point, because if this is all an intentional play and there's a reason for it, then I'm on board. But then again, like, you know, that experience of listening to the writer's room discussions during Battlestar Galactica was heartbreaking, because it was clear that the writers didn't know. They're like, I don't know, maybe it's and they strip away. They're like, okay, so they use the stem cells from the baby, but of course they don't call it that. It's like just hearing that idea and how politicized it is, and how it's like, oh well, wouldn't that be a cool idea? And you know, pulling it out their butt took something away from that for me.
But you got to know that, I mean, the process, in a way, I like that, because the process is a little bit like this. I mean, we don't want it to do the Lost thing where they really don't know. Also, you know, we live in a time now where a 10 to 12 episode arc is something expected. That's not out of the ordinary. And what's happening here is we're getting 10 episodes of something and complaining about how it doesn't know what it wants to be yet, even though this used to be not even half the season yet.
Sure.
And I maybe that compresses things, maybe it doesn't. But the way I'm enjoying it, I feel like this just hit me, and so bear with me. But it just hit me that maybe what I'm liking is this robot reveal, uncover stuff, weirdo stuff that's going on in the show reminds me of the reveal when Ian Holm was revealed to be a robot in the first Alien movie.
Spoiler.
Not later on when we knew Bishop was 1 and 2, and he, you know, we knew the whole time what he was. But when we saw the head get lopped off of Ian Holm, Bilbo Baggins' head laying on a table, gushing out white blood goo, and talking back about what the plan of the corporation was, I still shudder at that. Like, I still think, oh man, was I ever duped? I can't believe I didn't see it coming. This, that, and the other thing, and my head was just spinning. And I'm feeling those feelings. Maybe it's the blue lighting. Maybe it's the futuristic, crappy, broken everything, dead people everywhere, giving me this total alien vibe. But there's something there, and I'm glomming onto it. So I so much of what attracts me about this is tone. And I'm probably a little bit blind to the idea of, like what Tom's saying. He may be right. They may just be sloppy right now. They could be in the writer's room going, I don't know. We didn't even think HBO would approve this damn thing. I don't know.
Yeah.
No idea.
You know, Bryce, you just brought up an interesting point in the chat room. It is interesting that there are no single episode story arcs.
Yeah. Yeah. I noticed. Captain Fubar asks if
I wonder if this show would be better on Netflix, where you could just keep watching it. versus having to wait week to
Oh,
week.
I guarantee you it would be much more palatable for me. And by the way, Captain Fubar in the chat brings up a good point. We should talk about the photo that Dolores found. Was it the first episode when her dad found? You see William's fiance in the photo, and it's the same photo from the beginning of the story. Which to me, I just figured all that is, it's a mystery that will be resolved when we find out it's two separate timelines, which people have been speculating since the second episode.
Yeah. Well, we don't know how many timelines, but generally they're thinking it's two. And we just got a really good step towards the connectivity when William finally turned bad and killed everyone in the camp except his friend Logan. Which, he'd been a white hat up till then, and now he only has eyes for Dolores. Apparently, she's the only android that is her life is worth preserving. The odd thing is that when she goes into the church town, it's unexcavated, and she's wearing the clothes from when she last saw William. If William is in the past, why does she go down and see dead bodies then? If and then she remembers in the blue dress, like there's some things to be explained continuity wise there if there are two timelines. But again, that could all just be that, it's all happening in her mind anyway, because when she walks out of the church, there's the man in black, right? I mean, that's the big continuity moment, is if that's happening in the same timeline where she just left William, then William and the man in black are definitely not the same person.
I think there are three timelines. I could be wrong about this. Also, I think that the man in black is actually Logan, not William. I think William was a MacGuffin to think he was white hat this entire time, and now he has gone total black hat, and Logan has a complete epiphany about life about this, and he is the man in black. He's also got the connections, the money, and the position of power that would allow him to be kind of Mr. Untouchable in the park at a later date. The third timeline I'm thinking of is when she's down in that basement digging around in there, and it's all gone to crap. What timeline is that? Like in the modern one, are they all upstairs just chilling in their sweet place and walking around on carpet going, I don't know what's going on in the 100th floor down there. It looks like shit and there's dead people, but I'm not going down there. Like, that doesn't make sense to me. This has got to be some current, I think the current timeline, like the one that's happening in real time, is hers in the destruction. And I don't know how that'll all come out, but that's what I
think that there are 12 timelines and 7 different parks. And the big reveal is that nobody sees each other.
Southwest World, East West World.
Yes, exactly. North World. The only problem with the Logan theory is that they make it pretty clear that the Man in Black is a philanthropist in the outside world, and I think Logan is exactly who he looks like. I think he's a d-bag, selfish prick who's not the type of people to run a charitable foundation.
I think his idea, though, is I agree with you 100%. But I also think he's still kind of a d-bag, selfish prick. But I also think that the event he's witnessing with Logan and where that's headed next would be enough for a guy to completely go, whoa, all right, now I need to know where this is going. I have to, and create a life's obsession after taking innocent freaking Opie on this trip and having Opie go complete nuts and kill all these robots. Like, I just think that's a possibility is all I'm saying.
Could be.
Yeah. All right. Shall we move on to Justified?
Yeah, man. That was a weird episode of Justified.
Yeah, so this is The Money Trap, a story by Elmore Leonard and Chris Provenzano, and Chris Provenzano did the teleplay. And essentially, backwards. We're seeing a lot more allusions to Raylan's age. Right. And the age difference between him and the University of Kentucky girl is one part of that. But they're showing him with his hat off and his hair looking a little gray and scraggly more often. So I feel like they're trying to push us into this is some kind of, midlife crisis time for Raylan.
Or like a world weary, is this all I am? Is the guy who keeps getting caught in the same loop over and over? What am I, in a world in the far west? Some kind of Westworld?
This is a pretty much straight on Raylan chasing after the criminal story.
Yeah, but on the criminal side of things, the Boyd Crowder thing, where they go to that weird ass.
Oh, yes, that's right. The subplot that is not straight ahead at all. Yeah,
they go to some crazy eyes wide shut party, and then they start teasing Boyd for being lower class, because now we have to care about like the upper class criminals versus the lower class criminals.
How do you think you get away with your drug running, Boyd?
It was very weird. It was just weird. It was a weird episode.
So it's been a while for me. I've seen this episode and I remember it vaguely, but I remember really liking all of season 4. And so I'm trying to excise this out in my head and think of why this one stood out as an oddball or whatever. But I remember the weird party.
Well, so I guess the unifying theme of season 3 was really easy to follow. You had Blondie McShooty Hand, who had a superpower and came down and was flawed and had his arc and was, had his arm chopped off and it was over. I guess the overarching theme of season 4 is the big mystery over who this guy is, why we should care about him, what he did, and who knows what about him. But along the way, there's been like, all we've done is seen people go around saying like, yeah, is he over here? No, he's not. But you might know something. Well, I may know something, but I'm not going to tell you what I know. And then all of a sudden a sex party. I think I'm on board. I'm into it. I was just a little confused.
Yeah. And then of course we get no closer to finding Drew Thompson. Like he's the least present villain of any season of Justified so far. And then the rich people ask Boyd to kill someone for them, or they'll shut him down in Harlan and he won't be able to run his drug business anymore.
So are you guys not, you're watching this for the first time this season,
yes.
right?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, you are in for some fun then, this Drew Thompson stuff.
Yes.
Well, we're halfway through season 4, so I can't wait for the fun to start.
Yes, it's a little bit later in the season for things to start ramping up. But again, if what you want to do is build up this mystery and mystique of who Drew Thompson is, and maybe our mild annoyance will pay off in spades when we find out what happens.
And I'll tell you, it's mild annoyance because I love hearing Raylan talk. I love that we had a little gunfight at the OK Corral in the saloon downstairs from where he lives. Like, this episode could just stand on its own, and it was very enjoyable. But the whole Drew Thompson thing just seems to be dripping slower than molasses in Harlan.
I'll just say you'll get some resolution on it. The one thing to watch in this episode for people at home that maybe haven't watched it yet is this entire season, really, with Ron Ellard, who's in it. He plays Colton. He's the old army buddy.
We did get a little advance. His story seems to advance the most steadily because he got confronted over Ellie Mae not being dead.
I would say that is the most straightforward narrative we have this whole season, because I'm not real clear about what Boyd's aiming towards. I'm not clear what Raylan's. I'm not clear with this Drew guy. But I am clear. Like, okay, old army buddy, addicted, breaking down, not doing his job very well. Got it. I follow all this.
It's not a hard line to follow, but he's so good in it, and he just embodies it, and he becomes very important later on. And yeah, it's fantastic. I feel like I want to tell you guys stuff that I can't because I know.
I mean, that's the thing is you. If we were on the fence about jumping off, then you could rein us back in. But we're going to keep watching, and so I'm sure
every conversation about the Shield that Brian and I had the entire time I was watching it.
Yeah.
Whatever my opinion's worth on just television in general, I came into season 4 thinking it's an interesting change of pace and tone in 4 than it was in 3. 3 was really let's go get a psycho episode, this season, and this was just so much different. But man, it comes around in a great way. And like Tom keeps mentioning, and I will back him up 100% on this. There's something about that Elmore Leonard way of talking, and the way they're all talking to each other, and the way these people speak, and the way people interact is so like priceless. When this show ended, I was just devastated because no one talks like this on TV. So I miss it terribly.
Yeah, dude, that whole opening conversation of the world-weary nature when he's talking to Art about how, like, you're right. The dialogue is wonderful.
Yeah, I actually really love the sort of he's flirting but not really flirting with the girl from Kentucky and talking about poker, and every once in a while he just it felt like he just naturally started making allusions and then had to like, oh, wait a minute, I don't mean that. I better back off. Like, no, I'm not gonna play poker with you, if you know what I mean.
Right.
Well, we are no closer to finding Drew Thompson this episode, but who knows? Maybe next time on episode 8, Outlaw, we will find Drew Thompson has been buried in the floorboards below Boyd's brothel the whole time.
There is a character in the show called Arnold. Only one name. So
is he an android?
Don't
tell us. Don't tell us. Scott Johnson, thank you for joining us, man. Remind folks where they can find more Scott Johnson.
Oh, follow me on Twitter's best place for all my daily stuff. You can find me at Scott Johnson, and of course frogpants.com for all the shows, the art, everything I got going on. It can all be found there.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Bryce, and thank you for watching or listening.
Please be kind. I like Westworld. I like Justified.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.